Good evening. My name is Ashley Nance, and for my discussion board topic this week, I will be examining how the issue of homosexuality has affected mainstream denominations in recent decades, focusing specifically on the Presbyterians. The second half of the 20th century was a tumultuous time in the United States. Social justice, the civil rights movement, feminism, gay rights, and the sexual revolution were all societal issues that eventually became religious ones. Still dealing with the after effects of the fundamentalist modernist controversy, churches in America were torn between upholding traditional conservative ideals and finding a way to adapt to the changing society around them. In our textbook, Mark Knowles states it this way, quote, "During the 1960s, marked by moral revolution, older mainline churches received the greatest public attention as they sought an accommodation with the times. During the next decade, marked by moral reaction, fundamentalists seized the initiative and tried to redirect society in a conservative direction. The legacy of these contentious times was a pervasive division between liberal and conservative approaches to both public issues and the life of faith." End quote. The decades immediately following the 1960s saw the rise of conservative evangelical leaders such as Francis Schaeffer and Jerry Falwell, who believed that Christians had an obligation to positively impact their society by proclaiming the truth of the gospel and not changing it based on what the world around them wanted to hear. Within the mainline Christian denominations, however, conservatives who agreed with Falwell and Schaeffer were met with criticism. This debate manifested itself particularly strong in the Presbyterian Church, where the modernist ideals and liberal values became prevalent. Beginning in the early 1960s, a small group of Presbyterian ministers wanted to return their denomination, known as the PCUSA, to conservative roots. But by the end of that decade, they realized that it was not going to be possible and decided to start a new denomination. Frustrated by the PCUSA's apparent willingness to make Scripture fit the societal conventions of the day by granting full membership rights to homosexuals and ordaining them as ministers, the body that would come to be known as the Presbyterian Church in America was formed in late 1973. Some conservative Presbyterian ministers chose not to withdraw from the PCUSA at that time, not because they agreed with the PCUSA, but because they felt it would be a violation of their ordination vows. My own grandfather was one of these men. The vows they had taken, which can now be found on the PCUSA's website, stated that they were to, quote, "sincerely receive and adopt the essential tenets of the Reformed faith as expressed in the confessions of our church as authentic and reliable expositions of what Scripture leads us to believe and do." End quote. They realized that the church was drifting away from those essential tenets of the faith that they had promised to uphold, but they had made their vows before the Lord and were therefore not willing to break them unless the church first initiated a breach of contract, so to speak. 10 years later, in 1983, the Northern and Southern moderate Presbyterian churches merged and adopted a new constitution that accommodated their views on Scripture and allowed room for the acceptance and approval of homosexuality and other prominent social issues of the day. This provided men such as my grandfather with the opportunity they had been waiting for, a chance to split from the PCUSA in good conscience because the church under which they had made their vows before the Lord was no longer the same. Today, the Presbyterians remain divided over the issue of homosexuality. The PCUSA openly admits homosexuals as members and ordains them as officers and as ministers, whereas the PCA does not. Interestingly enough, this week, the General Assembly of the PCA is convening in Dallas, Texas, to discuss, among other topics, how to minister to homosexuals without condoning homosexuality itself. Both branches of the Presbyterian Church recognize that the issue of homosexuality will not be going away anytime soon. They would also do well to remember that man, although sinful and fallen, is created in the image of God, as our course guidelines state, and that all of our dealings with each other, no matter what our denomination, should be handled with that principle in mind.